All right, we're back for round six. After my pick of Ivory, the next guys were Roethlisberger, Golden Tate, Brandon Marshall, Jeremy Maclin, Martavis Bryant, Allen Robinson, Jarvis Landry, Martellus Bennett, the Black Unicorn, Peyton Manning, and LeGarrette Blount. Four more picks before I come up here. There goes Devontae Adams. He was really the guy I wanted there. Oh, that stinks. I thought that he'd be buried far enough down the rankings to where nobody would be ready to take him yet. That is too bad. He's definitely going to rise up draft boards now that Jordy Nelson is hurt. Maybe I shouldn't have expected to be able to get him there. It looks like that pick set off the chat. Many people are upset about that pick, or maybe not upset, but jealous, like I am. That's a nice pick. If I could pronounce that Twitter handle, I would. Anyway, there goes Rashad Jennings. Two more picks before I come up here. My last remaining top 60 players are Larry Fitzgerald and Todd Gurley. If Gurley makes it to me here, I'm in. I would have been hesitant. I didn't want to take him last round as my number 2 running back, but as my number 3 guy, I'm not sure he's going to be ready to start the year, but he very well could win some leagues in the latter half of the season. So I don't mind starting the work on my bench at this point. And he's a guy who you can do that with. Gio Bernard and Jordan Cameron were just selected. Feels early for Gio, even in a PPR. I do like the Jordan Cameron pick, though. He does feel like the tight end you want after, Martellus Bennett, Greg Olsen, basically that tier. And in fact, I think Greg Olsen might still be available. He is not. I am incorrect. Anyway, Fitzgerald, Gurley, those are the guys I'm looking at here. I think I could wait on Fitzgerald. If I want Gurley, I probably need to take him now. Other considerations, I mean, I don't really like many of these players all that much, to be fair. This is kind of a dead zone in the draft. So I'm going to take Gurley. I don't really own him very much this season, so to lock him up here feels kind of fun. I don't know if it's going to pay off, but again, diversify my options here across leagues, and that could pay off and be some nice insurance for AP and Ivory. Let's see. What are we doing with our next pick? I think I'm back on the wide receiver plan. As you can see, the Yahoo Draft software slotted Todd Gurley into my flex spot because that's the only spot he would fit in the starting lineup. But ideally, in reality, he's a bench player for me to start the year. I'm going to want a wide receiver in this flex spot, and that's driven by the PPR format. So in terms of wide receivers, let's look at who's available, and let's look at my ranks in that regard. So here we go. We're in the Fitzgerald and below realm. So Fitzgerald, Amari Cooper, Funchess, Sammy Watkins, Martavis Bryant's gone, Vincent Jackson, Deshaun Jackson, Decker, Bolden. Again, not a whole lot to look at here, unfortunately. So I do like Fitzgerald. I think he's a little underrated. I trust him a lot more with Carson Palmer back under center. Other guys on the Yahoo ranks that maybe I'm too low on. John Brown, Charles Johnson, Kendall Wright, Kenny Stills. I mean, most of the guys I mentioned are still available here. Bolden, Steve Smith. Anyway, what have we missed here? After I took Gurley, it was Deshaun, Sammy Watkins, Vincent Jackson, Doug Martin, Nelson Aguilar, and Roddy White. Feels a little early for Roddy White to me there. I'm not sure if that was an auto draft or what, but the reports on him are not good in my mind. I'd much rather, go a different direction at wide receiver at this stage in the draft. I'm worried that the health concerns with Roddy are just going to be a problem all season. With that said, let's look at the tight ends as well. I could think about one of them right here. Top ranked guy is Delaney Walker. Eifert I like as well. But I tend to wait on tight end. QBs, Matt Ryan, Eli Manning, Cam Newton, Tom Brady, Ryan Tannehill. The guys I like the most out of that group are Manning and Tannehill, and I think I can wait to get one of those guys if I want. Or I can just wait even longer and kind of go quarterback by committee. Back to wide receivers. I think I'm going to take Fitzgerald here. This is a pick I feel pretty good about, actually. Most of the top-ranked players here, or a lot of them, are quarterbacks. In fact, the top 3 are all quarterbacks. That should be no surprise. These draft rankings tend to overrate QBs in general. I mean, the fantasy community at large overrates quarterback play. Anyway, I've got a good start to the team here. Looking forward to the next round, and we'll catch up for that in just a minute. Here we are back for round 8. After my pick of Fitzgerald, the next picks were Decker, Shane Vereen, Tevin Coleman, Victor Cruz, Arian Foster. Round 7 pick. That seems a little early to me. Charles Johnson, Joique Bell, Matt Ryan, John Brown, and Julius Thomas. So we're starting to see more QBs, more tight ends get selected. This is about the time of the draft when that should start to happen. You know, starting lineups have filled out. People want to, you know, complete their starting lineups with quarterbacks and tight ends. I don't think it's always correct to do so. But in this case, I might be looking at a quarterback in this spot. It is worth noting that the top of my rankings right now are 3, you know, wide receiver, running back positions, and then Eli Manning and Ryan Tannehill. So depending upon who gets picked here with the next few selections, Tom Brady just went. I could be taking quarterback with one of these 2 picks, and I have Eli Manning slightly ahead of Tannehill. But I'd be happy with either one of those guys as my starter. I do think that both of them are pretty good values this year, and Eli in particular could, you know, set some nice, you know, pace sort of plays from week to week, if only because their defense isn't quite as good as Ryan Tannehill's in Miami. So Eli might be getting into a few more shootouts. Anquan Bolden was selected. That's a boring pick, but I like it. He's a guy who was on my queue, and a guy who I think is a little undervalued this year, again, based upon the fact that the Niners are probably going to have to throw to keep up with the teams that are scoring superfluous points against the crappy, or the all of a sudden crappy Niners defense. 2 more picks before I come up here. Funchess is the top of my ranks, then Crowell and Freeman. I'm not in love with either of those running back picks here. I was really high on Crowell to start the year, but I don't know. That Cleveland team just seems like such a mess. I find myself shying away from him after heavily investing with my first few drafts. There goes Freeman. So if I am taking a running back here, it's Crowell. But I think Funchess would be the guy I take. In terms of quarterbacks, I can look at the teams picking after me and see which one of them have quarterbacks. So this guy has Breeze. This guy has Romo. This guy has Luck. And this guy does not have a QB. I don't think he'll take 2. So if I pass on Manning and Tannehill, unless this auto drafter ends up with the second QB, which is possible, let's see. Yeah, you know, I think I can probably get away with it. If only because Tannehill is ranked a little further down the automatic ranks. I might miss out on Eli, but I'm okay with that. Again, quarterback production is relatively replaceable. So I'm going to take Funchess. Another injury risk. I'm not in love with him, but as a player who might be, you know, the only legitimate target in his offense, he could just get overloaded with targets, and we saw how that worked for Kelvin Benjamin last year. I'm not saying that Funchess is the same guy, but that sort of volume tends to play well in fantasy, and he does have talent. He's not, you know, some schmo who's going to get peppered with targets. He's a quality player. The only downside is that he's not currently healthy, and he's a rookie, so you never know how those are going to go. But again, for a bench player, I'm okay with, you know, taking a shot on upside at this stage of the draft. So hopefully we'll get Eli or Tannehill back to us here. It'd be interesting to see how this auto draft works. I can't remember exactly how Yahoo's auto pick works. If it fills out starting lineups before it starts taking bench spots, or if it just takes best available. I have a feeling it's going to fill out a starting lineup spot for him. And let's see who it selected, or who it selects. After I took Funchess, the next picks were Crowell and Torrey Smith, and the auto pick ended up with Delaney Walker. So that Delaney Walker pick slotted into his tight end. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So he's going to end up with a kicker or defense with his next pick, which is a real shame because he already blew one pick on Jordy Nelson via auto pick. I mean, otherwise this team looks okay. I mean, I don't like taking Luck early, but Luck, Andre Johnson, Vincent Jackson, Marshawn, Jonathan Stewart, Delaney Walker, the Roddy White pick kind of, again, I was against that when it happened, but still, I mean, things, except for the Jordy Nelson pick, things could be worse for an auto drafter, I suppose. The guy at the wheel did not take a QB. He appears to be waiting, so that will leave me with Eli here. Oh, no, it looks like he took Tannehill. Okay, that makes sense. So after Walker went, Tannehill and Woodhead were the next picks. There goes the Seattle defense as an auto pick. Two more picks before I come up here. Let's hope neither of these guys take a QB. And specifically, let's hope neither of these guys take Eli Manning, because that's the guy I want. One of them has Romo. One of them has Breeze. I can't imagine they want to take a backup quarterback this early when they already have, a relatively safe plays each in Romo and Breeze. But you never know. Fantasy football is a weird game. People do silly stuff all the time. One of those picks is in. It was Steve Smith Sr. And let's see. I have a feeling we're going to get Manning here. That's going to be a slam dunk pick for me. This does go to show that it's not that I don't want a good quarterback, because I do believe Manning is a good quarterback, and I do think I could get value at QB later in the draft. But this feels like a fair value for Eli Manning here in the 9th round, especially relative to the other QBs who have already been selected. Manning could easily outperform, Matt Ryan, Tony Romo. Like, I don't think he's necessarily going to post overall numbers better than Rodgers or Luck, or even, Peyton Manning. But, little brother Eli, week to week, will be startable, most of the time. And I think this is the right place to draft him relative to the other players available. So welcome to the team, Eli. We'll rejoin in just a minute with a recap of the rest of round 9 and the beginning of round 10. Okay, after the Eli pick, the next were Kendall Wright, Brandon LaFell, Tyler Eifert, Alfred Blue, Duke Johnson Jr., not to be confused with Steve Smith Sr., Ryan Matthews, Bishop Sankey, Trey Mason, Eddie Royal, and Darren Sproles. Lots of good picks there. A lot of PPR-motivated picks like Kendall Wright, Duke Johnson, Ryan Matthews, Eddie Royal, Darren Sproles especially, guys who are going to catch passes. There goes Phillip Rivers. Again, lots of QB values to be had late in the draft here. Devontae Parker, a nice value in round 10. He's got a lot of upside. If you like Tannehill and you like that Miami offense, you probably like Jordan Cameron, Devontae Parker, Kenny Stills, all the guys they've got there. Let's look at who we've got available here. I'm looking at wide receivers. Top of the Yahoo ranks are Garcon, Colston, Kenny Stills, Michael Floyd, Stevie Johnson. A little further down, I like Brian Quick and Crabtree. Brandon Coleman's getting some hype now as the New Orleans wide receiver 3. I was all aboard the Nick Toon hype wagon earlier this preseason, and that thing just went barreling off a cliff. So you'll find me at the bottom of the ravine, clawing my way back up the cliff, hopefully to start drafting Brandon Coleman at this point. I don't know how much to buy into any of this. I still think Nick Toon could be good in that offense. It'll be interesting to see how those guys get thrust into playing time, and maybe it's just better to stay away and focus on just getting Breeze and Cooks and Spiller and Ingram and just leaving it at that and letting everyone else sort out the mishmash of talent outside of those key players. I tend to take that sort of approach with teams like the Saints, teams like New England, guys who vary their usage from game to game. Running backs available here: David Cobb, Reggie Bush, Sims, Helou, Chris Polk might be the starter in Houston, who knows. Nile Davis. Basically not a whole lot to get in terms of value for running backs. I do need a tight end. My top ranked guy is Kyle Rudolph, but Ertz is right behind him. I do like ASJ and Vernon Davis a little further down, so I could probably wait for my next pick on that. I think I'm going to take a receiver here, and it's not pretty. I'm not really excited about any of these guys. I do think that Crabtree has the most upside. Like, this guy was a first-round pick. He was drafted as, a fantasy wide receiver 1 in years past. And I'm going to take him here. I don't feel great about this pick, but I'm going to trust my rankings for now. Anyway, let's see. What are we looking to do with the next pick? Let's look at our team first. Lots of wide receivers on the bench. Kind of grasping at straws here. And I do need to take some more running backs. I think that should be a priority with this next pick. I think I can, wait on the wide receiver position and the tight end position for a little while. I'm pretty stacked at wide receiver. I do want to get a tight end at some point. I just don't know if I want to spend this next pick on Kyle Rudolph or Zach Ertz when I should be able to get a guy like ASJ or Vernon Davis or even Antonio Gates plus another fill-in for the first few weeks later in the draft. Let's see. Another thing we can do is we can look to see how many teams already have tight ends, because that can dictate what we should do with our pick. Yahoo does have this nice function. I outlined this in another draft video where you can see positions drafted by team. So right now, only two of us don't have tight ends. myself and this team here, the Tom Brady drafter. And, you know, if he takes one of the guys I want, one of the other ones might fall to me. There is risk of other people taking tight ends because you can play a tight end at your flex. But that's, again, not too big of a concern. I don't mind, you know, coming up with a committee of tight ends and streaming them throughout the season. I don't think I can wait too much longer to get my first guy, but it'll probably be ASJ or Vernon Davis is my guess. But, again, let's get back to running backs. I think that's where I want to be. Who do we like here? Not many guys. According to my rankings, it looks like Nile Davis and David Cobb are my top-ranked guys. Polk is in there, as is Duke Johnson, but I think we missed on him. David Johnson of the Cardinals down here is in my rankings, but, man, that whole running back committee just seems like a complete mess. I don't know if I want any part of that. I mean, David Cobb is top of my ranks here. I think he'd be the guy I take if he makes it to me. I'm not sold that Tennessee won't be a committee, but, you know, at this point in the draft, you can take a flyer on him and see if he beats out Sankey. You never know, though.